I'm not coming back. I've met someone better. Your stuff. I've moved it to storage. The message came in at 11:42 p.m. while I was sitting in the kitchen of our penthouse apartment in Charlotte, still holding a half-finished cup of coffee. Attached was a screenshot. $118,000 had just been withdrawn from our joint savings account and transferred to a personal account under the name Aubrey James, my wife of the past 15 years. She was in Palm Springs, calling it a girls' trip. And I was here, in the middle of a summer night, staring at 3 lines of text. Just enough to wipe out everything we had once shared. My name is Miles Bennett, 54 years old, forensic accountant. It's a profession that teaches you to notice the smallest details others overlook. Mismatched numbers, unusual transfers. Behaviors that seem harmless but signal something bigger, more dangerous. And in my own marriage, I had seen it all, but I chose to stay silent. Maybe that was the first mistake. Or maybe the bigger mistake was believing love could compensate for contempt. Aubrey never truly respected what I did. To her, I was just the guy with the spreadsheets and paperwork, as long as there was money to open a yoga studio, to switch cars every 2 years, to book luxury detox retreats by the coast. Every time I tried to explain to her about a case, embezzlement, investigations, complex financial schemes, she would just smile and say, "You're good at it. I don't need the details as long as we're doing fine." We got married after a year of dating, when I was 39 and she was 35. I'd already been divorced once before, brief and without much fallout. With Aubrey, I thought I'd found someone full of energy and independence, someone with her own passions. I was wrong. The yoga studio I funded for her became a platform to build her personal brand. The photos, the inspiring captions, the soft music morning videos, a perfect front for the Instagram life she'd chosen. 6 years ago, I began, turning suspicion into action. I didn't argue, accuse, or get angry. I just rearranged things, set up 2 LLCs to hold assets, established trusts, invested in hidden assets, including crypto and international accounts used for dealings with foreign clients. I maintained our shared accounts so she wouldn't grow suspicious, but outside of those, Aubrey had no idea how much I truly owned. I set my phone down and opened my laptop. On the screen was the interface of the system I'd built myself. Part work tool, part firewall protecting my private life. 3 security alerts popped up. Aubrey had attempted to log into accounts she never had access to. She was calculating. I'll give her that. But she still didn't know everything. I sent 1 line back. Good luck. Then I called Eric Langston, my younger brother. A cybersecurity expert, Eric had helped me design a large part of the system. The call lasted exactly 2 lines. Remember that contingency plan we talked about 5 years ago? Yeah. Is it time? It's time. She made her move. I stood up and looked at the only wedding photo still hanging in the house. The 2 of us smiling, standing on the shores of the Outer Banks, golden sunset behind us. One of the few moments I once believed was real. The photo still hung there, quietly, on the exposed brick wall. I should have realized. What remained was just a photo, not love, not loyalty, and I was the last one to wake up. The next morning, I still made coffee like every other day. Habits are hard to break, even when your life has just been shattered by a few lines of text. But I didn't waste time on regret. In my profession, the first response after a fraud isn't emotion, it's systematic action. I logged into the personal financial management system that Eric and I had built over the years, originally just an internal audit tool, but later upgraded into a full asset protection mechanism. With a simple sequence of commands, I froze all joint accounts and linked credit cards, triggered a fraud alert on the $118,000 transfer, and sent it directly to the bank's high-level processing team using personal connections. Forwarded all related documents to the divorce attorney, along with instructions to file immediately that day. I wasn't dismantling. I was protecting. By around 10 a.m., I was seated at my usual cafe in the South End district, fingers gliding over the keyboard. The screen displayed the financial profile of Logan Steele, the name Aubrey had been tagging nonstop on Instagram for the past few months. Personal trainer, entrepreneur, source of inspiration, his bio claimed. What I saw? 3 maxed-out business credit cards, a $175,000 equipment loan, a new commercial lease in Dilworth still unpaid, and a co-signed loan contract bearing the signature of Aubrey James, my wife. I sat in silence for a while. Not because of the money, but because of the calculation. She had been planning to leave me well in advance, paving the road by investing in someone else, co-signing his loans under the legal title of my wife to gain favorable terms. 2 months before the breakup message, she had already co-signed a car loan with Logan. I let out a quiet laugh. It was all very methodical. But methodical doesn't mean secure. Around noon, the first call from Aubrey came in. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, another call, then several texts. Miles, there's a problem with the accounts. I can't withdraw money. Call me back ASAP. I didn't respond. I just drove to the storage facility she'd mentioned in her message. Entering the code she had provided, I opened the door and found 2 cardboard boxes labeled with my name, a few clothes, an old laptop, a couple of books. No wedding photos, no family keepsakes, not even my father's watch. Everything had been removed, as if I had never existed in her life. Something inside me shut off at that moment. The pain lost its sharpness. It thickened, sank like a stone. Dropping to the bottom of a well, this was no longer about love. This was an erasure. A financial scheme disguised as tears and empty promises. And I, the man she thought only knew spreadsheets, had been ready for this all along. Monday, I walked into the office like I did every other day. No one but Eric knew what had happened. Valerie, my assistant, looked up from her desk with wide eyes. Aren't you taking time off? Aubrey's called several times already. If she calls again, tell her to contact my lawyer. I didn't raise my voice, but it was loud. Enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. Rumors spread fast in office environments, and this time, I didn't feel the need to control them. By noon, she actually showed up. Aubrey James, in a cream-colored yoga outfit with golden leaf patterns, walked into the office lobby like she was still the perfect wife. Her hair tied in a neat bun, sunglasses perched on her head, and that familiar half-smile she always wore when she wanted something. Miles, there's a serious issue. The bank says our accounts are frozen. Credit cards aren't working. Maybe there's a system error. I simply nodded and said calmly, not an error. You withdrew money from a joint account without authorization. The bank calls that fraud. Her face stiffened. But that's our money. I'm your wife. Adjusted my tie and looked straight into her eyes. Not for much longer. And you transferred all the money into a personal account and then announced you're in love with someone else. You didn't just take the money. You took the title of wife out of this relationship. She stepped back slightly, glancing around. She realized the employees had stopped typing and were quietly listening. Miles, please. Can we talk in private? There's no need for privacy anymore. You made it clear you weren't coming back. I'm just handling the rest. That afternoon, my lawyer filed the divorce papers along with all the documentation about the withdrawal, and I began compiling a full record of the activities involving Logan Steele. Eric came into my office carrying a USB drive. Found it, he said. Loan records, credit card statements, lease agreement in Dilworth. Everything signed by Aubrey as co-guarantor. I opened the file. Every click brought up more evidence of calculated collusion between her and Logan. This one's interesting, Eric continued. Logan applied for a $175,000 equipment loan 4 months ago, and Aubrey co-signed it. But the loan terms clearly state marital assets to be used as collateral. They used your marital status to raise the loan ceiling. I stared at the bolded sentence. She used my assets to secure a loan for someone else without telling me. That's not all, Eric added. She also leased 2 luxury vehicles and opened 3 business credit cards, all linked to your shared assets. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside was the bustling uptown Charlotte Street scene, people rushing by, unaware that one man's life had just been manipulated to the core. She didn't just betray me, I said, my voice rough. She betrayed the entire system I built to protect myself. That evening, I met with my lawyer at her office. We sat before a large screen, with the full legal portfolio laid out. Loan contracts, collateral agreements, transaction histories, showing transfers from joint accounts into those tied to Harmon Active, LLC, Logan Steele's company. We'd like to request an emergency injunction to protect these assets, I said, and if necessary, we'll submit fraud evidence to the bank and to the prosecutor's office. My lawyer nodded. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. The next morning, I got the news. The court had approved the freezing of all related assets. Logan would soon receive a capital call notice, and Aubrey would soon realize that no matter how carefully she had planned it, she couldn't outmaneuver a man who had quietly been preparing for this moment for years. That afternoon, I parked in front of SteelFit, Logan Steele's upscale gym, with its gleaming glass facade and an LED banner scrolling the words, "Shape your future, today." Inside was a completely different world. Electronic dance music, blaring from speakers, blue-purple lights, and young people in branded athletic wear taking selfies between weightlifting sets. On the wall, Logan's face was printed large, next to a slogan that read, "Discipline is freedom." I walked straight to the reception desk. "I need to see Logan Steele. Tell him Miles Bennett is waiting." The receptionist looked surprised. I suppose not many people like me, gray shirt, slim tie, unwavering gaze, walk into this place with such composure. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded and made a call. A few minutes later, Logan appeared. Taller than in his photos, tanned. Skin, clean-shaven, slicked-back hair. He smiled professionally, extending his hand as if greeting a potential investor. "You must be Miles. Aubrey's told me a lot about you." I didn't shake his hand. I just gave a slight nod and said, "We need to talk, privately." His smile faltered briefly, but he kept the poise of someone used to performing. He led me into a glass-walled meeting room, soundproof but overlooking the training floor. I placed a black folder on the table and sat down. "This is the full financial record linking you and Aubrey James. Every loan, credit card, lease agreement, and financial guarantee. All of them signed by her while she was still my wife." Logan raised an eyebrow and opened the folder. Each turned page revealed another part of a plan he thought had been flawless. "I don't understand." "It's simple. She used her marital status with me as collateral for the loans you two used to grow this gym. But we're now in the middle of a divorce. She no longer has the right to represent our marital assets. That means all of those loans are going to be called early by the bank." He froze. "She told me you were wealthy. That money wouldn't be an issue." I leaned back in my chair, eyes fixed on him. "Money was never the issue. The issue is honesty." I stood, walked to the door, then paused. "One more thing. When Aubrey moved out, she took a few personal items that had emotional value to me. My father's watch, family photos, things money can't replace. Could you pass the message along?" Logan was silent for a moment, then nodded. "I'll see what I can do." The next day, a wooden box was delivered to the hotel where I was staying. No note, no message. Inside was my father's watch, some old photographs, and a few small keepsakes from the early years of our marriage. I didn't feel emotional, just lighter, as if I had finally closed a drawer that no longer needed to be opened. That afternoon, My lawyer called with an update. The court had granted an emergency asset protection order. All accounts, shared assets, and ownership tied to the marriage were frozen. They could not be transferred, collateralized, or used in any form until the divorce was finalized. I logged into my financial system. The notifications read, 17 unauthorized access attempts, denied. Attempts to open new loans under the name Miles Bennett, denied. Attempt to mortgage the condo, denied due to asset freeze order. That night, Aubrey called again. I answered. What the hell did you do, Miles? The bank just said they're recalling the equipment loan. Our credit cards are canceled. Logan's losing it. That's unfortunate, I replied curtly. Are you destroying us out of spite? What's between us is over. Why drag Logan into this? I didn't drag anyone in. You brought him in. By using marital assets to guarantee his loans without my consent. That's fraud. She was silent for a few seconds, then changed her tone. Maybe we can talk. I think I reacted too quickly. I miss you, Miles. I chuckled softly. 15 years with you, I let you control everything, thinking that was love. Not anymore. You can't be this heartless. I'm not heartless. I just stopped letting people erase me from my own life. I hung up. No trembling hand, no heartbreak, just clarity. This fight was no longer about revenge. It was about reclaiming boundaries. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in the conference room at my lawyer's office, preparing for the mandatory mediation session required by the court. No jury, no judge, just both parties and their legal representatives. But I knew today's outcome would determine everything. Aubrey walked in, accompanied by a young attorney I hadn't seen before. She was dressed formally, makeup layered on, hair carefully styled. But the dark circles under her eyes and the fatigue in her posture couldn't be hidden. She was no longer the radiant woman who had walked into my office 3 weeks ago, flashing a confident smile and saying, "It was all just a misunderstanding." Her lawyer spoke first. My client is willing to negotiate a fair division of assets, despite Mr. Bennett's controlling and emotionally damaging behavior. My lawyer smiled lightly, then slid a folder across the table. It's good. She's ready because we've just received the official statement from the bank. Their internal investigation is complete. Aubrey leaned forward to read it, her eyes darting rapidly over the bolded text. Her face gradually turned pale. The bank concluded that Ms. James forged her husband's signature to co-sign at least 3 business loans for Mr. Logan Steele, using marital assets without legal consent. Her lawyer lifted her head, face taut. We'll need time to review. Of course, my lawyer replied. But please note, the bank has already forwarded the case to the district attorney's office. We're here today to offer a final opportunity for a civil resolution before this becomes a criminal matter. Aubrey turned to me, her eyes wide. Miles, you can't let them do this. You're not serious. It's me, your wife. I looked straight at her. I'm not doing anything. You signed the documents. The bank forwarded the files. I'm just letting the truth come to light. A long silence followed. Then my lawyer continued. If Miss James agrees to sign the proposed divorce settlement, my client will send a letter to the bank expressing a preference for civil resolution rather than criminal prosecution. Additionally, he will not pursue charges for theft of personal property or unauthorized fund transfers. I turned to Aubrey. My voice was no longer angry, just certain. You'll keep the yoga studio. Keep your car. No alimony. And you'll assume full responsibility for every debt you created in my name. She nodded, silently signing. As I stood to leave the room, she placed a hand on mine. I honestly never thought you'd fight back like this. You were always so accommodating, so calm. I looked at her one last time. That was my choice. Just like everything you did was yours. I walked out of the room without looking back. A month later, I moved out of the hotel. I bought a small house in Asheville, a craftsman-style home with a sloped roof. A backyard of angelica shrubs and a flaming red maple tree. Nothing grand. Just enough space to slow down, repaint the porch steps myself, mend the fence, plant a few flower beds. I heard from a few old friends that Aubrey had moved to Colorado, continuing her social media work. The most recent photo she posted was of snow-covered mountains, with a caption that read, "Rebirth is a journey. No one needs to understand, as long as you believe." Logan had disappeared from Instagram. The gym had been sold to a national chain. The rental property was repossessed. Neither of them spoke about what had happened, and I didn't need them to. One Saturday afternoon, Eric came by, carrying a toolbox to help me install kitchen cabinets. "Heard anything from the other side?" he asked while measuring hinge placement. "No," I replied, "and I don't expect to." He nodded and went back to work in silence, measuring tape, screws, the scent of freshly cut wood, the sounds and smells of a life returning to its simplest form. That night I sat on the porch with a glass of bourbon in hand. No luxury car, no fine dining at the upscale restaurants Aubrey used to love. Just me, the wooden porch, the whisper of wind through the maple, and a peace that felt real. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt lighter. 15 years in the shell of an untrue marriage had taught me that freedom doesn't come from winning over someone. It comes from no longer letting them control you. The next morning I called the office and requested 2 weeks off. I packed the truck, locked the door behind me, and headed north. No itinerary, no expectations, no one needing to explain anything to anyone. Just me, and for the first time in years, owing no emotional debt to anyone.